Yeah. No, it's not REM, anyone. No, it's not. Hello, everyone. This is WAK William. I am your host tonight for another special party. This is an album listening party with Lavender Bush. We have Ryan and Christopher's here. Hello, Christopher. How are you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
I was just listening to a tune called Morning. I am actually in the Bay Area along with Ryan. And Christopher, are you in the Bay Area as well?
Yep.
I can't think of an event where I've spoken to all Bay Area artists. And this is really cool. And I'm super excited because tonight is the world premiere of our event, not only on Facebook, we've been doing that for a while, but on YouTube. So let us know where you're tuning in from. Of course, I'm here with Lavender Blush. And tonight we are going to listen to the 2022 album, You Are My Moonlight. And Ryan and Christopher will be our guests, and they'll be taking questions along the way. So feel free to put that in the comments box. And they're going to give us a little guide along about this album and how it's put together, some of these songs, and who's mastered by. That's right. We'll get into that. So let us know where you're tuning in from. Hello to everyone. Thank you so much. Again, my name is William, aka W. So, Ryan and Christopher, welcome to an event that I've been looking forward to. Ryan, it's been a while since I think we've talked about this event, and now we're here. The album came out last year, but I wanted to reconnect and retrace it. It's been quite a bit of time since the album was released. What are the vibes around that? What are the feelings?
The feelings of the album being out for a little while now. Yeah. For me, it's the creation of the album was very much rooted in the pandemic quarantine. And that's when most of it was recorded. And it started out as something that I was working on at home with the instruments that I had in my apartment because I couldn't go into my rehearsal studio and we couldn't practice or anything like that. So it started out in that way as being kind of a way for me to work on my songwriting a bit, but also to kind of blow off some steam and, kind of vent some of the, not frustration, but engage with the weird dynamics of that moment and some of the isolation. So to really not have that dynamic be there quite as much now, it's interesting to hear how some of the emotions I felt at the time in relation to that were written into the music. It's interesting to feel differently about that now when I listen to it. And then, of course, now we've had the chance to play a handful of these live or to rehearse these songs all together. And so they've developed a different character. And then some of these songs, too, were songs that existed in some form prior to this album. So some of them we played live before, or we had started writing before the quarantine. Some of these are old Moonbeam songs or have their origins in those days. So it's interesting to hear that context of the time with the quarantine and to not feel it in exactly the same way now.
Yeah. Christopher, what would you say? Thank you for sharing that, Ryan.
I mean, it's been really interesting because the reception has been really warm for this album. I think it's a very bright and poppy sounding album as compared to some of our previous recordings. So it's nice kind of seeing the direction shift that this sort of created for us. We had started kind of planning some of these ideas, like Ryan mentioned. We recorded some live sessions over the pandemic and previous to that, and that really kind of made us start to think in these directions. And I think that, it's informed where we're headed. And I think that it's interesting to see how much like we've changed even since then. So yeah, it's really cool kind of seeing, the evolution of our sound, and that people have been, excited about that, and it's not just kind of more of the same.
So before we actually listen to the album, I want to know if you wouldn't mind sharing, both of you, how did the pandemic affect you?
That's a really big question. Long exhale from Chris.
Yeah.
I realize that could be a very personal question, but if you want to share anything.
No, I like the, the opportunity to be honest about this stuff. And it has been very challenging because, for the first year, we really didn't get to see much of each other at all. And, there was still a lot of uncertainty about how things were spreading and how serious things could be. And, once vaccinations and booster shots started coming out, we started to kind of rejoin each other and start to work collaboratively. And that was a huge spirit lift. I mean, it's so draining to be away from music for such a long time and away from your friends, and specifically, combining those two things. Music is such an important spiritual release for, I think, most musicians. And in particular, when everybody's close friends like we are, it really makes it even harder because we're so used to bonding over these things. And so, when we got to start playing some live shows again last year, it was amazing. It was such a positive change in life after, a year or two of working at home and going hardly anywhere and seeing hardly anyone and not really getting that music experience that we were all so used to. So yeah, it was really, really special to kind of, start to see the light at the end of the tunnel and be able to, get back to it.
I imagine that must have been quite cathartic getting on that stage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ryan, what about you? I mean, I know you mentioned this a little bit ago, but did you fall prey to some really emotional struggles?
I did, yeah. And I think that you can get that in the theme of this record, especially compared to our earlier work. I think especially the first LP, that I think this record has a lot of darkness to it. And this time, or that time for me when I was recording this initially, was pretty dark. And a lot of it involved what Chris was saying, just elements of missing people and missing socialization and missing the intense connections that I have with my close friends. And Chris was mentioning this, that in the band, we've known each other for such a long time, both with music and also in other ways. Chris and I met like 15 years ago. Yeah. We've known each other for a long time. Sam, the bassist, and the three of us are, I would say, the core of the band. We've had people join us and we've had people come and go, and there are people who join us pretty consistently when they can, but we've all known each other for a really long time. And it was difficult to not see each other, not make music with each other. That's such a wonderful thing. That's necessary, definitely for me, but I think for us. But for me, the pandemic was also a time of reflecting about a lot of things and taking stock of what is important to me and what is less important as well, what I want in my life moving forward and what I really value. And this record is an exploration of that in a variety of ways, as well as I think an exploration of uncertainty and some of the other feelings that come with isolation. It was pretty difficult to deal with that for me. And I had a lot of good stuff. I mean, yeah, I had even then a lot of good stuff going for me. My life wasn't as difficult as it was for some people in that moment, but it still was certainly emotionally challenging. And I think that's true for everybody in some capacity.
Tell me something that you kind of threw away that you realized, I don't need this in my life. It's not a priority anymore. And that could be a material item. That could be, you don't have to mention names, of course, but that could maybe be a friendship. You realize, you know what?
Hmm. I think that I realized what was most important to me are my very close friendships and less people that I'm not as deeply connected to, but then also less other dynamics in my life that I give a lot of attention to, like work, for example. And I think with that, not to say that work is not important to me, but I think really reevaluating how much time I spend thinking about that relative to really doing what I love the most, and that is spending time with my loved ones. And then also making music. I think it helped me realize just how important that is to me, and specifically music creation, just what it does for me emotionally and what it does for me socially too. But I keep thinking about, I think Chris has a drummer. His drums were in our studio, and he was unable to access them. And of course, playing ripping drum solos in an apartment is perhaps frowned upon. But
Very much so.
Uh,
I'm so happy that I had one of my electric guitars and a synth in my apartment, and I have this little interface, and so I could just plug directly in and make basically zero noise and play around with using Logic and manipulating sound that way without using an amp. And being able to do that was hugely important for me.
yeah,
I'm not sure what I would have felt if I didn't have that opportunity.
right. And so Christopher, did you prefer Christopher or Chris?
Either one.
Okay.
Chris is probably
Well,
more natural.
okay. So we touched on perhaps the negative aspects to COVID and how it impacted your life. Tell us something that was quite positive about the experience.
Hmm. I think probably, the biggest takeaway for me was like realizing how much I had to lose in this environment, and realizing how much I really should appreciate the moments that I get to do these kind of things. I mean, it's really like incredible how big of a difference it made for me, like even just, a year into it, not having the ability to go play live shows, and then getting, this opportunity to go play a little tour. And that was just such a wonderful experience to, come out of isolation and be able to just really go take our music on the road, spend several
Mm,
days with friends, having, shared experiences, having, shared the stage with a bunch of really cool bands. And there's obviously, challenges and hard moments along the way, because it's not never easy, getting back into it like that. But I think that it really reminded me that, like, it's special that we get to do this.
mm,
And not that I ever really took it for granted, but I really, you know, prize the fact that I've got these opportunities to, spend some time in the recording studio, or be able to, go on the road with friends, or even just have a normal, rehearsal. Um, it's truly a gift that, you know, we get these opportunities, and I don't take it for granted at all.
I have one more question before we actually take a stroll along the moonlight here. What do you got? You guys have known each other for a while, 15 years. How do you make each other better as musicians? What do you give? What is something that you provide?
Hmm.
Do you push each other, or is it more kind of separate individual work and then merge it?
I think from my perspective, I think how we get better is by growing more familiar with each other and being able to predict one another's actions a little better. Not that we do a ton of improvising live on stage, but I think knowing and trusting each other better, the more we play, helps everything sound tighter. And I think from a writing perspective, we've learned each other's tastes and also complement each other's tastes better, just through the shared experience of either writing music or listening to music and learning what each other likes and learning how to challenge those tastes in some way to push the sound forward. I think we had a long period of time over the pandemic where we were doing an album club where we would each bring to the table an album a week, and then we would listen to that album and then just have a discussion about it. And that really helped me stay engaged with music in a way that I might not have if it was just me on my own. I'd probably be listening to, you know, the stuff that I'm familiar with and the things that are coming down the pipeline. But it was nice to have somebody else just constantly giving me a new thing to listen to, even if it wasn't necessarily something I loved. It was a new experience, and it gave me some insight into something that, you know, somebody else was listening to, and that was really nice to have that you know, avenue of exploration as like a personal friend who's also a DJ.
Ryan, how do you push Christopher?
I think that both Chris and I have really strong ideas about music, and they overlap pretty regularly, I would say. I think they mostly overlap, but we do have some really interesting divergences. And I think one of Chris's in particular is that he has a big post-rock background and appreciation for that too. That's a little bit different from my taste. So I think that we both talk a lot about music and we share ideas with each other. And I think we've talked about songwriting together, and I've shared some of my process with Chris too. And I think that leads us, the conversations we've had and what we've shared with each other leads us to ultimately write better music. And then I think in terms of Chris's influence on me, Chris is the best drummer I've ever played with. And his playing is so tight and so exact. He can play to a click track on a recording like I've never heard a drummer be able to. And usually drummers are a little bit frustrated when a guitarist will make them do that.
Sure.
But not only is Chris not frustrated by it, or at least not outwardly, but he nails it like first take every time. And it's so impressive.
So when he's doing that, what does that do for you?
It allows me to really have a lot of license with how I write and what I bring to the group, because I'm not limited then by needing to do things in a particular way. I have a lot of freedom. And so that's helpful. But then also the tightness of Chris's playing has really helped me grow as a musician and as a guitarist in particular, to play with a really tight and reliable rhythm section. As a guitarist, I think it's incredible practice too, and like my rhythm, I'm a little iffier, I think, than some of the rest of the band. And so it's been really helpful for me to grow as a musician, to play with such tight rhythmic musicians. And then I think another thing is that everybody brings different ideas. And I'm going to be very curious to ultimately see how people respond to the EP that we just finished. And we wrote more collaboratively. It's not released yet, but hopefully will be at some point this year, probably toward the end of the year. But that EP is a lot more collaborative than this LP in particular, but than other stuff that we've done. And I think you can kind of hear our influence on each other when you hear more of that collaborative element. And I think our collaborative stuff is our best stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that EP when that should hatch. So with this album, You Are My Moonlight, before we begin, what is it that you really want the listener to absorb? I mean, I know there's a lot of things going on here in these songs, but what is it that you want us to take away? Is it the lyrics? Is it the way that these songs flow from song to song? Is it the arrangement? What were you chasing after that you really want? Like, yeah, I want the listener to really pick up on this.
I want them to sit with what it makes them feel authentically, not to engage with whatever I might have been feeling or whatever inspired for me, the lyrics or the sound of the music. I think the songs are very emotionally evocative, and a lot of my writing is rooted in me wanting to tap into what some of my favorite songs and my favorite artists make me feel. And so it's kind of basically a reflection of that, but I also want people to have a really personal engagement with it. Like if something reminds them of a certain emotion or a certain memory or inspires a certain feeling within them, I think that's fantastic. Even if it's quite different from maybe my original intention, I think that's beautiful. And I want people to really explore that and to feel that.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Ryan said. I think that it's also, I think, interesting to kind of see sort of the shift in direction that we've taken to. There's a lot of change in the sound and the structure of the songs. There's a lot of I'd say maturity in the songwriting, as opposed to some of our, kind of simpler prior songs. And I think it's something that I would like to, hear more feedback on in terms of kind of the direction that we're headed. And also, I'm curious to see, kind of how that translates into what comes next too. Because I think even, from The Garden of Inescapable Pleasure to Moonlight to the upcoming EP, it's pretty drastically different from album to album. And I don't think that it's necessarily a complete departure, but how we recorded it, how it was mastered, how it was engineered, all these things have kind of really, shaped into pretty stark differences while still maintaining the soul and the heartbeat of Lavender Blush.
Well, you guys are so articulate, and obviously I get a sense from the both of you and the collaboration work that you do. There's a great level of respect amongst you two. And it's great that you had this long-standing relationship that you can continue to push and push and push, but feel safe while doing that. Is that fair? Is that there?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
So so if you've never participated in an album listening party, I'm going to tell you how this works. What you're going to do is you are going to queue up You Are My Moonlight, whatever format you have it, and we're going to start with Seacliff. And I will keep the comments moving along with the title of a song. While you are listening to the album at home on your device, it is not going to come through Facebook. You won't even hear it through Facebook. It's going to be on your own device at home. Feel free to post any comments. Exactly what Ryan was saying earlier. It's like, how are these songs resonating? How are they speaking to you? What are they evoking inside of you? And if you want to share anything, that would be great. You can just type it in the comments box. Ryan and Chris, you can obviously share your thoughts as these songs were moving through, anything about the production. And we will talk more after the album's over about the production, the making of, if you will. And then when we're done, we'll do a quick Q&A and we'll follow it up. We'll kind of bookend it with some albums that have inspired you along the way or anything that you're listening to. And we'll call it a day.
Okay.
So when I say hit it, which is what HI stands for, hit it, you're going to hit play on your device at home. So let's get it all queued up. Actually, I want to know, when was the last time you guys listened to this?
Been a minute.
Yeah.
We've been so focused on the new album. I feel like we've been listening to that a lot more. We occasionally listen to the songs when we're rehearsing, just for, maybe a refresher to work on an idea. But it's been a little while since I've listened to the full album.
Ryan?
Yeah, same. It's been a little while. There are moments where I need to give it a break, actually, and step away. And I've been in a moment like that for a while, so I'm excited to revisit.
Nice. All right. Okay, so I'm going to turn off my screen here, but you'll hear me. Ryan and Chris, if you want to mute your audio, you can.
Okay.
And you're going to hear me pipe in with some comments along the way. And feel free to post any comments about these songs as you wish. Okay, everyone, get your album queued up. You Are My Moonlight, Lavender Blush. I can't believe 2022. Dang. And then when I say hit it, you're going to hit play. Have you guys done a listening party before? No, okay.
No.
All right. All right. Now, I should say, I will keep everyone going on pace here. You'll see the title of the tracks. Again, if you're just joining us, let us know. Oh, we do have some people here. Oh, a lady by the name of Suzanne is here from Napa. Thank you for tuning in, Suzanne. Much appreciated. I'm sure Ryan appreciates it as well.
It's my mom. Very sweet.
Hi, Mom. Awesome. And yeah, this is going to be great. So let's enjoy this great album, Lavender Blush, You Are My Moonlight. Hit it! Such a great intro. Cocteau Twins. Oh, great opener. Let's transition into the spark. Oh, yeah, that was the spark. Listening to Lavender Blush, You Are My Moonlight. My name is W. Track number 3, Banshee. Turn it up. Hell of a transition there. Fading out from the Banshee. A little Port Ellen. Are we talking about a drink here? Yeah, I love that track. Let's hit some morning time. How about morning? That might be true, but it is damn good. Turn this one up, everyone. Turn it up. That was Don't Leave Me, Lavender Blush. You Are My Moonlight. Woo! Curtains are closing. Caldecott. Yes, yes, and more yeses. That was You Are My Moonlight, Lavender Blush. That was fun. I really enjoyed that. I forgot how quickly that album moves. I think if I had my one criticism is that I could be here longer listening to that. Do you guys extend these songs? I haven't seen you live. Do you extend some of these songs into mini epics?
No, I said, yeah. We do sometimes alter tempos, but like we don't really extend songs.
Why not?
And that's a great question. Maybe we will now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Like
not really.
I could visualize some of these songs just kind of moving into that realm of like, all right, where are we going now?
Hmm? Yeah, I think especially Seacliff in Morning, I could imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we're designing our sets, we're typically kind of crunched for time anyway because we like to play lots of songs. So usually we'll have more songs in our set than we have time for to begin with, and then depending on the pace of the show, we'll cut a couple if need be. But there's some that we are absolutely not going to cut. Say, for example, you are my moonlight. That's one that is just kind of a fixture in our set right now. But yeah, I think given a bit more time on stage, a little longer set, we would probably goof around a bit more, I would think. And there's definitely room to do that with several of these, some of our older songs. And I think some of the stuff that we're working on and some of the stuff that we've got coming up.
Do you guys really enjoy playing live?
Yes, and I think it's also very stressful for us because I think I'm an anxious person, and I think that I don't want to speak for everybody else in the band, but I think there's maybe a little bit of a trend in our band of a little bit of stage anxiety, but I think I personally, once we get on the stage and start doing it and things start going, getting smooth, we all seem to have a really fun time doing it. And I think that we've had spans of time where we didn't play a lot, and that was really challenging to come back from. But once if you kind of get into the groove of things, I think it really takes away a lot of that edge of the anxiety, and you start to feel a little bit more at home. When we did our tour last year, that was really the first time we've played multiple shows on back-to-back nights, and more than just two. And I think that was really eye-opening to us because it's like a muscle that you don't use, it'll atrophy. But once you kind of get in the habit of exercising, it becomes really easy to just hop up there and start doing it.
So if that's the case, and I agree, that exercise, that repetition, right? Shouldn't that assuage, reduce some of that anxiety on the onset? I'm not saying it should.
Yeah.
But it could, right?
It
Because
could,
you're
yeah.
familiar with it.
Yeah,
Chris,
I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh no, I think the issue is that we sometimes get into this pattern of not playing a show for like a couple of months. And so it's like we're getting used to it over and over again. But when we're more regular with it, I do feel like I have less anxiety at the start of a show when that's the case.
Yeah.
I want to know, in all of your honesty, what is that feeling like? I've seen documentaries, I'm sure you have, I just watched one on the Pogues. They did this great show at
Mm.
live in Paris. And the very opening shot is Spider Stacy, Shane McGowan. They're all sitting there just ready to go. And you can hear the crowd.
Mm.
What is that feeling like just before you hit the stage? Is it just truly butterflies? Is it just like, yeah, we're going to kick out? What is it? Who's taking that one?
Mm.
I feel like for me, I tend to kind of get into sort of a, I get into my head until I literally like sit down and hit that first note. And it's
Mm.
just like very like internalizing the feeling of, you know, kind of pressure to perform and wanting to do my best and not for selfish reasons, but because like people are there to have a good time and I want to be the facilitator of that.
Mm.
So to you know kind of just sort of block everything out and sort of listen, you know, try to calm my own mind down is really really tough until I literally have the, you know, sticks in my hand and I'm sitting at my throne and I'm hitting that first note, counting in the first song. It's really hard to like kind of turn that off. And sometimes I'll play with my eyes closed for the first song just to kind of get into the groove of things and really like kind of you know, find the moment.
I love that.
Mhm.
Ryan, what about for you?
I like that I had no idea that you did that. not you know, being in front of you on a stage. Yeah, it's interesting. For me, I'm a super anxious person generally, not just with playing on stage, but yeah. I like larger audiences. That's easier for me. Smaller audience or like a sparse crowd, I feel more self-conscious. I feel more vulnerable. I usually feel like the entire first song is difficult for me. And like into the second song, I'll feel like I'm getting a groove. And the hardest thing for me in terms of my stage fright is singing. And there's often a funny effect where how my singing is coming across to me on stage, sometimes it sounds different than it did in sound check, even when we have that opportunity. Just having people in a room makes that sound different. And so I feel like I don't know exactly what that's going to sound like until partway through the first song, and then I get more used to it. We also have the issue of we're an extremely loud live band, and I think that we're known for that. And the caliber of the venue, if a venue doesn't have a strong enough PA system, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what's going on vocally. And so that can be tough to get used to. There are sometimes where I really have to listen with nuance to make sure that the intonation is good, right? I have to get used to that feeling. It takes me a moment. But I've read that that's a relatively common thing for bands, even bands that are playing every day, playing these massive tours. I read this interview with Slowdive where they were talking about how they would often open with Machine Gun from Souvlaki because it had less singing compared to some of their other songs, and it also was a bit slower, had fewer chord changes, and they felt that that enabled them to get used to that stage feeling, and they would do that as their first song as a way to gain some confidence. So I often find when I make a set list or when I present my vision of a set list, and usually I think especially these days, it's not me making the live set list so much. Chris and Sam are really good at that, mixtape experts. But usually when I try to make a set list, I'll put a song that's like an anxiety reducing song for me. It's very, very straightforward and perhaps a little bit selfish, but I'm like, I want to feel comfortable, and that helps me.
Both of you have mentioned that word anxiety, and that word, I've been dealing with that quite a bit in my life in terms of teaching, working with students.
Mm-hmm.
And I really push my students to sit in the discomfort of anxiety and being vulnerable, and teaching them, giving them the tools that allows them to feel like it's safe to sit in that insecure moment. So what I want to know is, before we really start tapping into these songs and the production of it, Ryan and whoever wants to take this, where did that anxiety stem from?
I feel like I'm in therapy right now.
Here you go.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that generally creative people feel the world a bit differently, and I think this is one way that that can manifest. Certainly for me, and with a lot of musicians I know, I think that we have very sensitive souls, and we feel emotions very hotly. And I think that that can sometimes manifest as anxiety, or that can sometimes lead to an anxious response, perhaps. I also think the idea of making any sort of art, not just music, but making art and presenting it to an audience, it is vulnerable, and it's deeply vulnerable. It takes a lot of guts to do that. You have to be ready for the fact that people won't like what you're doing, what you've made, or even worse, that people will be ambivalent about it, or that maybe
Right.
you've poured your heart into something and like people don't listen to it more than once if it's a recording, or like maybe during a set you see people like moving around or like talking over it, right? It's an interesting feeling, and I think that sitting with it is certainly important. That's something that I philosophically agree with. Any sort of discomfort, I think to sit with it is important because it can often show us something important about ourselves. But then I also think that really artistic creation is a deeply vulnerable process. And to be vulnerable, especially publicly, can lead to very, very high highs, but also very, very low lows. And I feel a lot of anxiety personally surrounding that. And it relates to how I feel about live performance too. I wanted to mention that I am a little bit iffier about live performance than I think Chris demonstrated in his response. I think sometimes there can be no higher high, but I think also sometimes there can be really very few lower lows. A bad show is a rough experience, or even a good show that is being met with a lukewarm response or is poorly attended, right?
Yeah.
So, and Chris, I'm going to ask you that same question, but since it's rattling in my head, if it's a poor show or a show where you feel like you're not connecting to the audience, what can you do to evaluate after and go, okay, what can we do? How do we connect on a deeper level? How do we provide that spark that's going to catch?
Mm-hmm.
You guys do a lot of reflection?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Go for it.
Chris.
I was going to say, when we've had bad shows, it usually is a long moment of contemplation, and sometimes it's been elements beyond our control, where maybe just the sound wasn't great for us and we couldn't hear each other. Sometimes it's just poorly attended because it maybe wasn't as promoted as well as we'd hoped. Sometimes we just have an off night, and you miss a few hits, you drop a stick, you fall out of sync with the band, and because you can't hear each other, and it takes a moment to get back there. And then oftentimes what I find is when we have friends or loved ones in the audience, and a lot of people will just be kind about it and say, yeah, hey, it was still a good show. um when we are expressing our frustration, I really love that my partner is very transparent about what she experiences watching us, because she is a performer herself, not a musician but a stage actor, and she'll give me honest feedback. And a lot of times the things that we perceive as just being absolutely devastating to the show have zero effect on the overall experience. It's like what you feel on stage and what you experience by having this anxiety is often um, blown up by your own feelings versus what is actually being perceived by the audience, and the time that they're having. I don't think that we've been on too many stages where I've gotten off the stage and had people notice that the room felt significantly less full, or that the people just seem to not enjoy themselves. It's usually more in our heads. Looks like Ryan's lost power, unfortunately. So hopefully he
Okay.
can reconnect. But yeah, it can be very, very difficult to have those experiences too. And like, I won't minimize it. Like, we've had some shows where we've absolutely just had to take a step back and have a talk about what went wrong and how do we make this better. And we've had to make some hard choices, and that can be really, really tough, because a lot of times we're working with our friends, and we have to provide harsh feedback, and sometimes that can be damaging to those relationships, but we get through it. And I think that's
Is
one of the
that,
benefits of working with people who are friends.
is that harsh feedback usually dictated by several people, or is there one person that kind of says, "Hey, everyone, this is"?
So Ryan has been kind of the creative driving force of the band, but I think the core band, Sam, Ryan, and I, kind of make a lot of the biggest decisions together, and that is nice to have. Kind of a little bit of a, I don't want to say like a democracy specifically, but it does have a profound effect on how we're able to work through things. So it doesn't feel like one person's just making unilateral decisions, or having to make make the band experience that much harsher. Because
Yeah.
like you say, it's tough when it's friends and we have to make changes, or provide some critical feedback.
Ryan's father, hello. Chris and Ryan, what is the greatest album you have shared with your parents? And also, what is the greatest concert? I love this. What is the greatest concerts you've taken your parents to? So,
Hmm.
greatest album you've shared with your parents, and then what is the greatest concert you've taken your parents to?
Interesting. Okay. To think about this one for a sec. I think albums that I share with my parents, that stuff. I guess if the question is what are albums that we enjoy listening to together?
That you've shared with the parents? Like, for
Yeah.
me, it would be Simon Garfunkel. Like, I took my parents to Simon Garfunkel. I'll never forget that. It put a
Hmm.
smile on my dad, like, ear to ear. It was huge for him.
Yeah.
Um, so is there a concert you've actually been to with parents?
Haven't seen too many live shows with my parents.
No.
I've been to more shows with other people's parents than probably my parents.
Got it.
I think the album that I share with my parents probably most would be like probably Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Um, I have many memories of, you know, watching my mom listen to the vinyl, dancing around with her headphones on, you know, just really engaging with that album. And as a result, I have very warm memories of that album, and we, you know, it comes up on playlists when we take family trips, and you know, it's something that we all really love and engage with. Um, yeah, and then, you know, shows that I've seen with parents, I've seen the Beach Boys with my parents, my wife's parents, a couple times, and that's always just a very neat experience because they grew up listening to that music. You know, my father-in-law was a he used to race cars in the LA River, like they do in Greece. I mean, he was a true hot rod enthusiast, and just
Nice.
really identifies with that car culture aspect of the Beach Boys. And you know, as it as it was, I ended up seeing Brian Wilson when he came through town for the Pet Sounds anniversary, because that was just like such a neat experience because you only get to see the Beach Boys usually without him. So
Right, right.
having that engagement with the Beach Boys is really, really special.
So you didn't get a Beach Boys to master the album. You got someone else by the name
Yeah.
of Simon Scott. Now, I was telling Ryan before this event started that I think the last 3 to 5 interviews I've done, Simon Scott has popped up in terms of his name, what he's able to do in terms of providing his skills and prowess. So here we are, Simon Scott. We're talking about you again. How did that connection come about?
So, um, I think that started with Ryan taking an interest in his mastering. He'd been, I mean, we're obviously all big fans of Slowdive, but Ryan has was working on some solo stuff and worked with Simon to kind of see how it went. And when the opportunity came up to have him master the full length album, it seemed like a no brainer because his work was just so beautiful and subtle and very detailed. He's got a really good eye or ear for mastering and contributes a lot while not not overwhelming the song. Um, and I really, you know, respect and appreciate what he's done for our sound on that album. Yeah, he's got a really interesting year.
How long did he take to master the album? Do you remember?
I don't know the exact time frame. Ryan did most of that on his own, going back and forth with Simon. He sent us example, you know, kind of example tracks just to kind of get some feedback in the middle of it. But I don't think I was involved from, you know, day one to the final step. This last album, we were involved in every the upcoming EP is going to be will be a lot more. We were a lot more hands on with the mixing and the mastering. But yeah, from the mastering standpoint, I think Ryan took care of most of that.
Is there a song or two that you realize, wow, how wonderful to have Simon master that one? I mean, he did a lot of it, but was there like, okay, this is why we asked him to join us for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it stands out particularly on the opening track, because there's so much more presence in the vocals than what we've typically mixed it like before. So to keep it, very present while also, making it sit nicely amongst the really, open, kind of aimless lead part at the beginning, and not having it sit too on top. That was really like, okay, this is really a special thing to have him, put his hands on it, give it that final touch.
Not many people can say they've had Simon Scott, right?
Yeah.
As a co-mastering. He does great work, and I know the bands that I've spoken to previously can echo those sentiments. So, did he work on this new EP? Can you?
He didn't. We have a friend of mine from that I grew up with that has gotten into mastering that I introduced Ryan to this time around.
Okay.
His name is Joe Bandy. He's been mastering stuff for a while, and I found out about this just by happenstance because we started following each other on Instagram, and I asked him about his business and introduced him to Ryan, and Ryan sent him a couple of tracks just to kind of see what he would do with it, and he ended up doing his new solo project, the stuff that he's released under Devoted Fans, and I would say that although it's not, he doesn't have the recognizable name of Simon Scott, his work is absolutely on the same level, and he was really receptive to feedback and understood the moves that we were wanting when he was sending us tracks and having us kind of give him some feedback. And the thing that Ryan really liked about working with him is that it felt very intuitive, and that like when Joe would make an adjustment, it was doing something exactly the way that he would want him to do it, but doing it in his own way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind actually typing his name in there? Would that be
Sure.
okay?
Yeah, of course. And,
I just got a message that says, "Oh no, my power's out," which is why I got kicked off.
Yeah.
Oh, see, this is what we do. We just roll with it, right?
Yep.
Joe Bandy. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great to know. And so, tell us, on this album, "You Are My Moonlight," any tracks that just took such a long time to put together? It was frustrating. It wasn't coming together. It was for whatever reason, you couldn't get it over that last hurdle.
I can't speak to the exact process of most things, but I know that the thing that takes Ryan the most time to get right usually is the vocals, because he's his own worst critic. And it was really nice working with a solid studio engineer at L Studio, Phil, who helped us with the mixing and the engineering on this upcoming album, really kind of changed the vocal recording experience for Ryan, because Phil could provide feedback in a way that was really supportive and direct, and also could give Ryan a moment of relief when it was like, okay, you need to just step away, take a breath, try again. And I think the vocal recording went so much faster this time around than any of our previous recordings, just because we've done everything ourselves in the past. And so, you know, that, and I imagine that Ryan probably, you know, doing so much vocal intensive recording on this album and to have it be so present, it's like zooming in on it for him. So that is always, you know, the toughest thing.
And that goes back to the vulnerability issue.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of circles back to that, where, I mean, I'm not a vocalist, but I can imagine the sheer challenge of that. And I don't know how people do it, but
Yeah.
hey, I'll stick to what I do. So yes, he says, what took the longest on this record were, yes, the vocals. So Ryan, how have you grown as a vocalist? So whenever you're ready to answer that, how have you grown as a vocalist? I want to know that. And then he says the guitar tones, getting them exact. Tell us a song about Banshee.
Ooh,
share?
yeah. So Banshee was one of the songs that we wrote longest ago on this album when we were still in Moonbeams. That is one that is changed shape a lot over the years. The entire intro was you know, written after the fact. We had a much more I think it was originally in 6/6, and we kind of came around to the idea that you know, having it in 4/4 made more sense, but then adding to it also the you know, kind of the layers of you know, kind of distortion and fuzz at the start, and then kind of carrying some of that dissonance through the song too. It used to be a little prettier, and I think it's still a pretty song, but it's got some harshness to it that I think really provides some interesting contrast.
Well said. I totally agree. Is there a standout track for you that you just adore, and or after it was put together, you're like, "Yep, we nailed it"?
I mean, I think probably "You Are My Moonlight" is the standout on that album. And I think I say that from the perspective of it has, I'd say, kind of shaped a little bit of the direction that we're heading in more so. It's just got such a nice rumble sound to the guitars. I think it feels shoegazy while feeling, you know, it's got a little bit of that kind of dream pop sensibility to it. And I think that you know, the song structure is really very much in, you know, kind of still sits like a pretty simple pop song. And it's got that really simple little lead part that just kind of carries it throughout. It's spacious. I like the spaciousness of that song.
Do you guys spend a lot of time on order of songs? Create
Yes.
flow, cohesion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
I'd
enjoy that
say,
process?
yeah, we really like to, you know, kind of play around with the order. Like Ryan mentioned, Sam and I both really like to, you know, kind of shuffle the songs, figure out what seems like it's got the best ebb and flow. And one of the goals of the next album that we're going to be writing is, you know, kind of focusing on albums that we consider to be like a 10 out of 10, and figuring out what makes a really amazing first song, what makes a really amazing, you know, follow up to that first song.
So
And
basically, you're making the Cure Disintegration album.
I mean, there are worse
So
things to
many,
aim for,
right?
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm not going to grab it, but there's an album I have. I spoke to the producer of it. It's a band called The Cry. Um, and it's really beautiful. It's like if you like the ocean blue, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of dream pop. And he said that they've only made one album. And he said what they were chasing after. He said to the band, I want every song to sound like it could be a single. That's what they were pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you listen to that album, it's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It there's nothing, it doesn't sound like to me an album that sounds showy, pretentious in that manner, but he was spot on. He was absolutely spot on. Every song is just like a repeat, and it's just like they nailed it. And that was their one and done. And they have released singles here and there, but I'm I'd be curious to see, like, as artists, where is your mind in terms of what are you chasing after before you even lay down the first vocal, before you even lay down the first chords for anything? Do you sit
Mm-hmm.
there and talk about it? This is what we wanna go after.
Yeah. Oh, big time. And I think especially so now that we're writing a lot more collaboratively, and kind of trying to figure out what what sort of feeling we want to get from the song, and then exploring different song ideas that we have, and kind of trying to figure out how if it's something that we want to shape into this particular sound, and what where we want to go from that. And I think some of the things that we're working on, and we've had these ideas for a while. And he's back.
In the car.
uh, but yeah, some of the things that we've been working on, particularly for what will come after the EP, I think really start to explore different spaces than we're even used to. A lot more vocal harmonies. I think a lot more, kind of open sounding, uh, spacious songs. I think a lot of our songs previously have been pretty busy, and I think we're starting to shift into more of our, kind of open and spacious sound going into what'll be coming down the line.
Ryan, welcome back. Sorry about that little power outage. You said you're taking more risk with expressiveness and your vocal range. You used to think
Yeah.
yourself as a guitarist who has to sing, but now you're beginning to think of yourself as a singer
Mhm.
with an unconventional voice.
Yeah, I used to be really shy about my singing and reluctant, and I think I'm coming into approaching it a bit differently, and I think that you hear that in the production of the vocals. And of course, I didn't mix this record, which the others I was pretty involved in mixing. And I think part of my mixing style was to bury my vocals a bit because I was insecure about them. And my friend Kyle, who mixed this record, he's an amazing engineer. He's great at mixing and mastering, great producer. He typically produces pop or hip hop. He's kind of dabbled in both. And I think he produced the vocals in a more pop way on this record than anything that I had been involved with in my musical life. And when he sent me these, I was initially like, oh no, my vocals are too centered. But then I thought, I actually like that. And the lyrics I spend a lot of time on all of our recordings. And I think on our earlier recordings, you're not really able to pick out what I'm singing unless you have lyrics to read. On this record, you can pick out a lot of the lyrics actually without reading them. And that gave me a lot of confidence actually to hear the vocals mixed like this and to get used to that. And now moving forward, I really want the singing to be more central. And on our forthcoming EP, it is as well. Maybe not this as much as this record, but yeah, it's more central for sure.
Tell us about the we'll wrap it up here soon. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. My name is W, here with Lavender Blush, Bay Area, San Francisco band. Awesome. Tell us about the album artwork and how does that fit into this the theme?
John Coffey, he is the best. He has a great group called Desario, but he's a Sacramento music legend as well. Played in a bunch of different bands in some different genres as well. But his graphic design work is delicious, I think. He has such a recognizable style. And I know, W, that you're a big fan of Luna. You might notice that he's done a couple of their records. He's done some records for Dean and Britta. And you can see, kind of based on the records he's done for us, you can see his style. It's like a fingerprint, I think. But I really love working with him. And he's done everything for us from our part-time punk session on. So he did the other LP. He did the Sunday single. I took that photo, but he did the design. And then
he did?
Yeah, he did this.
Okay.
Yeah. He did this, and he did our forthcoming record too, which has a gorgeous cover. And this, our forthcoming record, I think, is the most his style, the part-time punk session too. But I love working with him because I can give him a really specific set of parameters, and he listens to me, but he also adds his own unmistakable style, and he always makes my ideas better. Usually my ideas are too direct, and he makes them more subtle. Like, let's get some moon phases going on. Like, let's do a big old crescent. He was like, that might be a little bit too on the nose, right? So on this cover, you can see moon phases, right? But they're more subtle, and it's really not the focal point. But for this one, I was really particular about the color scheme. I wanted these pinks, blues, and purples, and I think that it was gorgeous. It came out gorgeously.
That's another band.
He also suggested red, pinks, and purples. Yeah, one of the best bands playing in one of the best San Francisco bands, I think, at the moment. Yeah, but he also suggested not having any sort of the band's name, the idol, not having any of that on the cover, but instead doing that on a sticker on the shrink wrap, which I thought was a cool move as well. So yeah, his designs are always great. I love what he comes up with, and he's a lovely person. But one more thing about him is that I think that we kind of push him to do something slightly differently too. And his designs for us, I get the sense that he's always excited to design for us because his designs kind of get out of his comfort zone slightly as well. I like that when
I was
having a
going to
creative.
ask how you push him. That's such a great collaboration, right? And this is no criticism towards other artists I've spoken with, but I've never heard that. I think that's great. Awesome. We're going to wrap it up with a section in the interview I'd like to do is, what are artists listening to, or what are some inspired albums that you would recommend? If you have the physical copy and you want to hold it up, awesome. If you just want to rattle it off, that's fine. If you have the cassette or 8-track, we'll take that too. So Ron, why don't we start with Chris? What are some albums that you can think of that have shaped you as a person and or musician?
I think probably one of my deepest connections to an album is the album Come On Die Young by Mogwai. Probably one of my all-time favorites. I think probably the newest Beach House album, which I am drawing a blank on the name right now, but it is truly one of the best albums I think I've ever heard. And I think some people would argue that their earlier stuff is in some ways more interesting, but I think that where they're headed and what they are doing live is just so special.
Once Twice Melody.
Thank you. Once Twice Melody. And Big Time by Angel Olsen has been like on repeat in my house. That album crushes me. It's just such a deeply moving album.
What a force, right?
Yeah.
What a tremendous force.
And then recently I've come across a couple of local bands. Aluminum, I'll shout them out. Their record is fantastic. Dandy Boy Records just put that out, and then Blue Ocean is another fantastic band. Both bands I'd love to organize shows with, just so I can hear them live.
Do you mind doing us a favor while Ryan is speaking? Can you punch in some of those artists you'd recommend, those albums?
Oh yeah,
that'd be great. And did you ever get into like early, I don't know, synth pop, that kind of stuff, 80s?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, New Order, Joy Division, I love it. You know, I think there's a lot of I have a very diverse background in music, but yeah, I love all the 80s synth pop stuff, and I like even some of the, you know, really poppy stuff like the Cars. Rick Ocasek's songwriting is just so fascinating to me.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Ryan, where are you now?
I'm back in my apartment by candlelight.
Okay. I've never experienced it. This is fantastic. I love it.
I'm embracing my goth edge here.
What are we fields of the Nephilim out? What are we going for here?
I needed to show.
What are some goodies you'd like to share with us?
Okay. Flying Saucer Attack.
Oh, wow. Nice.
They, for me, are a huge influence. The mixture of lo-fi noise, just, dense songs, like thick songs.
Yeah.
I love that. Big influence on Moonbeams, but then also Lavender Blush. Yeah. And then home recording. I love them for that too.
Okay.
Let's see. Henry's Dress. Yeah.
Is that Slumberland Records?
Slumberland. Yeah, it's an early one for them. I can't remember what year this came out. I think like maybe 94. It might be earlier. Yeah, 94. San Francisco group. They started, I believe, in Albuquerque, but then moved to San Francisco and had some other bands afterward, but incredible, like just raw noise, like shoegazy, but like very poppy, very charming. Sarah Records influenced.
Nice.
Yeah, which I love that kind of thing.
Yep.
Teach Me Tiger.
Not aware of that one.
Ooh, yeah. If hard to find, you can find 2 songs of theirs on YouTube, and it's because I uploaded them. Because like I want people to have them, but the A side of this record is a song called Wonderful, and it is truly an incredible song. It's like and this group, a bit mysterious. This songwriter like put out a handful of songs, I think in the late 90s and early 2000s, that came out on like various 7-inch records. And the music is like a mix between doo-wop, Motown kind of inspired stuff, but then also dub reggae and like
Oh,
garage rock. And
okay.
yeah, it's all lo-fi and done on a 4-track tape recorder. And the songs have a charming quality that I think is rare. And even though none of our music sounds like this band, I really, when I'm writing, I want to write songs that make people feel the way that this song makes me feel. And then lastly is this group, and yes, I think you were joking about tapes, but
Nice.
yes, we're record nerds, so we got tape players and stuff. But there's a group called Sacred Space, and I don't know a ton about them other than the songwriter likes Lavender Blush and has our first tape too, which is pretty cool. But this tape came out on the label of a guy named James Wing, who had a shoegaze group called Pink Playground. Really great band. But he had his own label and he released some stuff by Sacred Space, including this tape. This tape for me is like a religious text. Like the songs are half these like noisy post-punk Jesus and Mary chain shoegazy kind of Flying Saucer Attack sounding tunes, and then the other half are these like really beautiful instrumentals, like a lot of reverb and delay, no distortion.
Yeah.
And I like the duality of that. And these songs are like a minute and a half. They're like punk songs basically too.
Where are they from? Where are they at?
Sacred Space, I think the songwriter now lives in LA. I don't know where he was based when he was doing this though. I think it's like a person's project.
Yeah. So do you have anything mainstream?
Well, you know that I love REM. I
Yeah.
love this. I love the Smiths. I like a lot of modern pop too. Yeah, but I brought these out because these are a bit more of the. I think when people listen to us, they're like, "Oh, they probably like My Bloody Valentine. They probably like Slow Dive. They probably like Jesus and Mary Chain, The Cure." And yeah, of course we do. But I wanted to share these things because there's a lot that we like that I think that people might not expect or might not necessarily know.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, the influences that motivate my songwriting, they come from all over the place. Not necessarily just what we sound like, but if anything moves me, I'll try to think about what about it moves me, and I'll try to incorporate that into what we're doing.
We're going to wrap this up with a little fun trivia. So what's going to happen, everyone? You can play along at home for bragging rights for when we have our next listening party with Lavender Blush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a song. It's basically name that tune. However, being a teacher, I'm going to provide some modifications or adjustments to this game. So if you don't know the tune, but you know the artist, you can punch in the artist. You can also punch in the name of the album if you want. I'm not going to be too worried about spelling, so do the best you can. So we're going to do one practice, and you just punch in any of those, and we're going to do 5 after that. Okay. So here's your practice tune. Ready? And the first one to punch it in the comments box that gets it right gets a point. Good luck. Anyone like to punch that in? I'll give you a clue. Think Depeche Mode, but not DM. Anyone? I'm getting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That would be Erasure. Erasure. Yes, we're going to do 80s alternative in new
no.
That's why I picked it. All right, here we go. We're going to do 5. High five. High five. First one to punch this in. Ready, go.
Yep.
Chris, way to elevate your self-esteem. Joy Division is correct. Can you name the song?
I want to say it's. Oh no, it's not Age. It's Transmission.
Nope.
No, is
Ryan?
it Age of Consent?
Ryan?
Disorder, right?
Disorder is
Oh,
correct.
Disorder. God,
I'm so bad.
I have
with
like a
song
permanent
titles.
mental block with that song title for some
Oh.
reason.
It's such a phenomenal song. All right, a mid-year. Nice. Your mom says mid-year. That might be coming. Okay, 4 more. Here we go. Ready? Ooh, we're going classic on this one. Huge hit for this band. They're actually coming to the Bay Area. Yes. Not Bauhaus, but
Love and Rockets.
Lavender Rockets.
Oh.
That's correct. So Alive. That's right. That would be David J. and Company. All right, let's do a couple more. 3 more. Ready? Go. Who's going to get in first?
The Smiths.
That is correct. Are you guys big Smith fans?
Yes.
How about Morrissey?
I'm a fan of his music, but not him so much.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Hey, your mom got it right.
Hey.
Okay, we got what? 2 more? 3 more. Here we go. Ooh, we got to go for this one.
The Eurythmics.
Nice. Name the song.
No. I can hear the song. I can't think of the title. It's
close.
Talk to Me Like Lovers Do.
And very close. Here Comes the Rain Again. That's right.
Oh, here comes. Yeah, I can. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, Ryan, your mom loves pretty good music here.
You're playing my mom's.
Is this right in her wheelhouse?
Yeah, this is exact.
All right, we got 2 more. Since you said Rick Ocasek, I had to do this. It's just classic.
A classic.
Cannot think of the
Gary Newman?
Gary Newman, Cars is correct.
Mm.
Suzanne, where were you in my other interviews?
Oh,
All right, here we go. Oh, yes. This is a three-pointer. Chris, take note of this drum work. Here it comes.
Echo and the Bunnymen. Oh.
Not Echo and the Bunnymen. Same city. Same city. Liverpool. Known as the Icicle Works. Ian McNabb. All right, this is for all the marbles. Here we go. Here we go. Last one. And you have to name the band, name the song, and name the album.
Hmm.
Here we go.
Oh. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Songs from the Big Chair. And oh my God.
Oh, come on, Chris.
It's like right there. It's been a long day. I've been up since 6. Tears for Fears. God.
They put out an album last year. Dynamite. Dynamite. I was very surprised. Yeah, check it out. Talk about some the consummate professionals who have been doing this, and you just know, damn, their voices, they can sing. So, I mean, just it's great. Good stuff. You guys have the last word. Tours, upcoming albums, anything you want to share. We have hit the 2-hour mark.
Yeah. We got a show coming up in Oakland at the Golden Bowl on May 10th. We'll be playing with Asteroid Number 4, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
And we've got a show in Sacramento at the Sacramento Bicycle Kitchen on May
13th.
13th. Thank you. And then, keep an eye out for There's Nothing Inside Your Heart coming out later this year, hopefully.
Ryan, anything else you want to share?
Yeah. Thanks to you for hosting us. It's always fun to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
Thanks to my parents and my wonderful mom who's been participating and crushing it in the trivia. And I mean, you can see where I get my love of music from is from my family first and foremost. And I'm very appreciative to them and all they've encouraged in me in relation to music. And
love it.
It's such a dream to play music with my friends, and the fact that, anybody is engaging with it at all, I think is such a beautiful thing. So I appreciate that.
With all due respect, and that was beautifully said to the both of you, I love the fact that you were able to share your vulnerabilities about your vulnerabilities today. I think that takes some courage to do that and talk about perhaps maybe you as musicians and your shortcomings and anything like that. I appreciate that. And I hope you're able to continue to tap in those vulnerabilities and somehow use it as fuel, some manner. It's a great album. And that's why I wanted to reconnect with it. I wanted people to feel that feeling again, and speaking with you too about the production work of it, and obviously working with Simon and other people that you feel very proud about. It's fantastic. Thank you. And thank you again for people tuning in. Our next event is April 21st is with Tim Koch and Ian Masters. You might know Ian from the so they did it. They're known as Isolated Gate. And so that will be on April 21st. And then I'm also doing David J. from Bauhaus and Love and Rockets on April 21st. So we've got some nice events. And then so stay tuned for that. Thanks again, everyone. My name is W, aka William, High Arts and the Edge, tuning in from the Bay Area with some Bay Area friends here. Chris Howard, Ryan Moonbeam, also known as Lavender Blush. Thanks again. Take care, and we will see you on stage.
All
Peace.
right, see ya. Thank you.
Thank you.